Hey guys, how the hell are you? It's that time again. Let's do a new unbiased gear review on this. The new Mesa Boogie Mark II C Plus Suite by Neural DSP. So look, we're just going to move right on into it. We're not going to go too in depth. This is going to be kind of casual. The reason being is because look, if you are watching this video, more than likely you've already seen me and probably a whole bunch of other YouTubers do various reviews and demos of various Neural DSP plugins. You guys know what we're working with here. You're familiar with the interface and the various features already. That being said, I'll kind of call out a handful of things that I think are of note, things that I think are kind of cool, that help out this plugin a little bit. But we're going to keep this casual, maybe go over some of the tones that I use, all while sipping on a little bit of whiskey. By the way, this is from Milam and Green. This is their straight rye whiskey finished in port wine casks. This is based out of Texas. I believe Waco, Texas, as a matter of fact. And damn, this is such a good expression. It's got a lot of that kind of dark fruit note from the port on the back end. A bit of rye spice, a bit of rye grain, but also a bit of that sort of crafty funk. This is some damn good stuff. So if you ever have a chance to pick up a bottle of this, highly recommend it, especially if you like finished ryes. This is a really, really good one. But anyways, let's go into the plugin. So, like I said before, you've seen one of these plugins before. You've seen them all. You know that we've got the presets, input, output, gate, transpose, which is a relatively newer function that Neural DSP has been adding. You've got the amp face. Now, of note, there are two different amps on this. You've got the Mark II C Plus and the Mark II C++, which has a little bit more gain on tap. So a little bit different tonality between these two. Before the amp section, you've got two overdrive pedals. They do have a slightly different tone to them, but it's not to an extreme degree. Let me just go to the default settings really quick and show you what I mean. So this is kind of the cleaner tone that we're working with here, just so that I can show you guys what the difference is between these overdrives. Click on overdrive 1. All the knobs facing up at noon. Click on overdrive 2. A little bit more extreme gain. A little bit more shaping capability. Let's twist some knobs. Overdrive 2. Overdrive 1. So Overdrive 1, I would say, is a little bit more of kind of your basic tube screamer like Overdrive, but Overdrive 2 is a little bit more transparent and has a little bit more gain on tap with it. So use those to your heart's content, but now moving on to the amps itself. So you do have a lot of push and pull functions here, so make note of that. This is how you engage the lead drive. This is how you disengage it. One of the other things that you guys should also be aware of with this amp that I didn't realize until a little bit later, hit this little icon right here and it goes to the back of the amp. There's a bunch of functions on here that don't do anything, but there are a few that do. Slave and ground are obviously just kind of for aesthetic purposes, but the presence knob is located back here, as is an onboard amp reverb unit. There's also this switch that goes between simulclass and class A, so you can get a little bit different tones that way. Check out something that sounds a little bit more vintage versus something that sounds a little bit more modern and searing. Something else of note is that if you go to over here where we've got the speaker cabinets, there are 3 different speaker cabinets that are included on this plugin that all have a little bit different tones. They go between a few different 4x12s as well as the Mesa 2x12. And just to kind of show you the differences, I've got the same mic, same positioning set up on all 3 of these plugins just so you can kind of see. So a little bit different tone between the 3. One of the things you should also take note of is that if you do this little drop-down menu, there is a boatload more microphone options that I'm used to seeing on a Neural DSP plugin. I don't know if this is new for this particular plugin or if this is something that has already been done on a few others that maybe I haven't reviewed on this channel. But this is cool to see a lot more miking options, including an off-axis 57 if you want to try your hand at making a sort of Fredman technique. There's also examples where they are miking 2 different vintage 30s. So just really quick to show you what we're working with here. Right now, on this particular cabinet, this is miking what they call vintage 30 2003. And now this one is the exact same mics, exact same placement, but just showing you the differences between the 2003 and the 2004. So a little bit snappier, a little bit brighter on that one. Finally, something else to note before I show you some tones that I've come up with. It should be of note that when looking at the amp itself, all of the knobs that are on here seem to behave kind of like how you would expect them to behave on a vintage amp. They're a little bit woolly, they've got kind of wide Q sweeps that go across the frequency range, and it's not very tight at all. If you want to really shape the distortion and the high gain aggression, this 5-band equalizer on the Mesa is your friend. That is what you need to tweak. Move it up and down. This is far more dramatic of an effect than anything over here. You still want to use this as a jumping off point, but this is kind of where you really get that grind and that girth. So real quick, a few tones that I've got here. I've got this sort of power metal tone where I'm actually playing it on the quote-unquote clean channel of the Mark II C+. I've got the lead drive turned off and I'm just kind of pumping up some gain using the channel volume, and then tweak the EQ to what you see here. Something super articulate. I like that a lot. Let's go into modern classic metal. This is something that I based off of the Mark II C+, kind of to get that sort of like modern day Accept and Primal Fear tone a little bit. I just wanted something that can kind of capture that sort of German heavy metal thing a little bit better. And just for doubling up when I'm recording, I made this one Modern Classic Metal 2, which is honestly all the exact same settings, just kind of tweaked the cabinet and the EQ ever so slightly. Also been working with a setting that I kind of came up with called Extreme Metal. The various settings that you see here, I am on this cab right here, which is a little bit different looking and to me gives a little bit more of a tighter bass sound, at least to my ears. And likewise with that, I've also got Extreme Metal 2. There again, just a little bit tweaked on the speaker cabinet, ever so slightly bumping up a couple of different frequencies just to get a nice tone to combine with that one. So overall, my final thought on this plugin, this is pretty interesting, it's pretty cool, it's another useful tool to add to my plugin arsenal. I'm getting some interesting tones out of it that are quite a bit different from what I'm used to getting out of other Neural DSP plugins. So, like, I love, of course, the different archetype models that they've got. I love all the Fortin stuff, especially the Cali. That's still one of my go-tos. But you know, this is definitely a different flavor. You've got something that's a little bit woolier, a little bit raspier on the high end. Like, it's one of those things where you just kind of get giddy plugging into this thing and like, ooh, it's giving a little bit extra grime and grind to it that you don't get out of a lot of modern amps. And for that reason, I kind of really dig it. That being said, one of the other cool things that you can do with this is, by all means, please head on to the interwebs and do some Google research, find all the various James Hetfield settings, because let's be honest, this is the amp that James Hetfield has made famous. So there's a lot of information out there to be found with his various settings that he has used over the years on his Mark II-C Plus and also on his Mark II-C Plus, where you can kind of tailor things a little bit, try to get tones that mimic those classic records. Also, if you want to play around with the Class A function and maybe go for a little bit less breakup, dial back the aggression a little bit, you can get some really kind of soulful, mellow tones coming out of this thing too. Something that makes like leads sing for classic rock. You kind of get that Prince tone a little bit when he just jams out on Purple Rain. You can totally get that going with this amp sim. So in that regard, it's more versatile than it lets on. Like, sure, you take a look at it, it's the Mark II C++ and the C+, and you're like, oh, this is full-on aggression. But no, like, mess around with it and you're going to be very surprised. And that's kind of the ultimate theme with this particular plugin too, is mess around with it, play around with it, fuss with the EQ, both the onboard amp EQ as well as the post EQ that's also included in here. Mess with it, mess with it, mess with it. You would be so surprised the results that it's going to yield to you, because it's one of those things where, yeah, it doesn't sound amazing out of the gate. Like this right here is the default tone with everything on, honestly. By the way, there are some onboard effects that I forgot to mention to you. We got the reverb and the delay on here. Let's click those off, but this is the default tone. Not bad, but not what most people getting this plugin are gonna go for. So you have to tweak the knobs. You have to turn the knobs. You have to move the sliders up and down on both the regular EQ as well as the post EQ. You have to play around with mics, mic placement, the different speaker and amp combinations. You're gonna get rewarded for it, but you're gonna need a little bit of patience. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to this channel, tons more of this content to come. And as always, remember, take what you do seriously, but do not take yourselves too seriously.